I'm wondering for people who might not have access, directly with somebody like who does the kind of work that you do, how can they listen to their own bodies? You were talking about how your body does speak to you, and it does have a specific way of communicating. Can we talk about that a bit?
The heart definitely speaks. Now, do we always listen? No, but I'm going to give you some examples. Because I'm also a certified heart math practitioner, and we over the years we tend to think that this is command central right up here. It's not. It's right here. Because what we've learned through science and research is that the heart actually has a brain. It has similar wiring and tissue and does things that the physical brain does. So you could think of the heart as the conductor of everything. The other real important part of this is the vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body, and it has nerve fibers into every single one of our organs. We have two branches of the autonomic nervous system. And autonomic just means it's running in the background. We don't have any it's kind of what helps us to breathe. It helps us our hearts beat. It's running digestion. It's all that. We don't have to think about it. It's sort of the automatic pilot. Okay. There are two branches of that. One of them is the fight or flight, which is unfortunately quite rampant right now throughout the whole world for many reasons. And then we have and that's the sympathetic side. We have the parasympathetic side, which is what we call the rest and digest. More and more people, for a variety of reasons, are spending a tremendous amount of time in the fight or flight mode, like reading the news or whatever. Or even more, there are things in the environment that our innate wisdom is triggering. We're being triggered into a fight or flight type response. What happens physiologically is that up to 80% of the blood leaves the forebrain. This is where we have our tools, we have our mindfulness, we have our thinking, our critical thinking and logic and all that's right up here. Well, if that blood leaves and goes into the body, it goes to the kidneys, the heart, the lungs, the muscles for the fight or flight response. Now, a couple other things happen. Adrenaline levels go up because that's going to give you energy to run or fight, and back in the day when we had to worry about things like the saber-toothed tiger or marauding tribes or whatever, this was a good thing to have because it gave you a good burst of energy and you might survive. And the other hormone that is produced is cortisol. We were not designed to have these being triggered over and over and over again, because there are several body systems that go offline at that time because they're not necessary. Your immune system goes down temporarily, but you don't need to worry about fighting an infection, for example, if you're going to get killed or eaten by the tiger or whatever. Your gut goes down, goes offline. The blood is preferentially shunted. And so if you look at today's health ills and issues, I'm very comfortable in saying that the majority of our chronic disease situations probably have a foundation in stress. Okay. And so we need to be able to get ourselves more into a rest and digest situation. We need to be spending much more time there than being triggered, and by the things we know and the things we don't know. We know that cortisol, your brain getting a bath with that over time is very unhealthy. It can help to atrophy the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain where we take in new learning. And I remember reading somewhere, the term stress makes you stupid. Well, you're not stupid. It's just you don't have the blood coming up here to bring oxygen, nutrition, and remove toxins. And we shouldn't be having all that cortisol all the time. It's not healthy. And the adrenaline, of course, that can contribute to high blood pressure and problems with the heart and all of that. there's a couple of great heart math techniques, and one of them is called attitude breathing. And this stuff is so easy and it works. And attitude breathing, it just means bringing your attention to your heart. And if, many people find they have trouble getting out of their heads. But if you thought about just wiggling your toe, you're focusing then on wiggling your toe. You do the same thing. Put your hand over your heart and focus on your heart. And then you want to bring in a feeling of gratitude or appreciation for something, someone, some event. Could be your pet, your dog, could be your best friend. Any number of things. And you want to really feel into that feeling, because what's happening behind the scenes, part of the heart when it's struggling with all of its input, because again, it's the conductor of the orchestra and they're getting all these signals, from the body. In order to have a more balanced approach, what we want is for the heart to be in a more coherent state. And what we know is that various emotions, and these are things like love, which is the highest frequency, gratitude, compassion, calm, peace, those things help to bring the heart into a state of coherence, which means that it's not beating the heart rate. What we call variability, which is kind of the beat to beat thing, can end up getting very irregular and kind of jaggy with things like anger and despair and any of the, I don't want to call them negative emotions, they're all part of the spectrum. But when we spend too much time in there, we're affecting the heart. And the heart is, because she's the conductor of the orchestra, then you're going to have a very discordant orchestra going on. So when she is in coherence, and it just means, again, that rather than these jaggy lines, and we can see them when we hook people up to monitors and show them this, they'll have a nice smooth, what we call a sine wave. And that's what we want. And what we want to do is then again, you bring that feeling into the heart and breathe that feeling in through the heart and then back out through the solar plexus, and do that for say 20 to 30 seconds. So you sort of anchor that feeling in, and your body starts to get used to that. And quite often, a person may notice that they feel calmer. They feel a little more at ease. Perhaps if it's they're having a problem with anxiety or something, they don't feel the chattering of the monkey brain or whatever you want to call it. But it's a learned technique that is powerful and easy, and it works, and it doesn't take that long to start to get results. And the reason I want people to be aware of it is because the body speaks to us in many ways. Each of us have our own ways that we get communications. For many of us, we may get what we call a gut feeling. And I believe it is a form of intuition, but not exactly intuition, other than it's a cautionary thing. When I think most of us have had those times where we had a gut feeling about something, and maybe it was a, yeah, you should do this, or no, you shouldn't. But it's also taking, I believe there's an important tie-in with its communication with the heart, because there's the heart brain, this brain, and the gut brain. And everybody should be in harmony together. Now, the thing too is, again, because the vagus nerve, as I mentioned a little earlier, is in charge of the rest and digest part of our systems. That's where we want to spend a lot more of our day, in the rest and digest part. Other ways you can access that vagal nerve is real simple stuff. Cold water on the face, taking a cold shower, I know, burr. Gargling, which is easy enough for everyone to do because the vagus nerve runs through the neck And when you gargle, there's certain muscles that are activated that help to activate the vagus. So that's pretty simple. There are things like you can hold your nose, take a deep breath, and just it's kind of blow against there, but don't let it out. Don't do that for too long because that can activate what we call the vagal response or vasovagal. Some people get a little lightheaded. So you just do that sparingly. But gentle exercise, yoga is wonderful for helping to get us spending more time in the parasympathetic realm of rest and digest. In Chinese medicine, the small intestine organ has an energy, has a meridian to it, and all of that. And the small intestine organ itself is in charge of discernment, as in the food comes from the stomach. It says, okay, we're going to keep that. No, don't want that. And don't want that either, but we'll keep that. And then sends it on down to large intestine, for example. The reason I'm talking about discernment is that quite often, if people are having gut issues, a first piece might be, do you have too much on your plate? Think of your plate, think of discernment, because small intestine, its energy is also about discernment. If your body is speaking to you in a certain way, you're having a lot of gut stuff. Well, what's going on in your life? Where are you putting your focus? Are there some things you might be able to remove? Number one. Number two, think about activating that vagus nerve, because your gut issue can also be just telling you that the vagus nerve is not being activated. And we want the vagus nerve to come in and help us with that, because there's so many, honestly, it's very interesting how many chronic health issues have a vagus nerve component, and we aren't taking a look at that. And I think if we did, people, again, would start to feel like they had a little bit more control over what's going on for them, because that's where I think we need to get, is people feeling empowered.
Thanks for listening. Check out Castle Gate, a novel based on my own ancestral healing journey, at lisabonis.com. In 1921, 4 men set off from Scotland to the United States. Will Garrock, his brother Pete, his son Willie, and his nephew Thomas, all coal miners. They left behind the miners' rows and the nationwide mining strike with its soup kitchens. Their destination was Castlegate, Utah, where they had kin to welcome them before sending for their wives and children. They prospered in America, working in one of the finest mines in Utah. Until that tragic day, March 8th, 1924. Disaster struck. 3 explosions, trapping 171 men inside. Rescue crews worked tirelessly for days, but sadly, they could not save a soul. Women were widowed and children were orphaned, and some never recovered from their broken hearts. Castlegate is the true and tragic saga of a Scottish family whose dreams of finding their fortunes in the bountiful coal mines of Castlegate, Utah during the Prohibition era explode in one of the most devastating mine disasters in American history. Learn more at lisabonis.com.